Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to Verbling, www.verbling.com. Hi there, I'm Teacher Oakley, and this week at this time, at this particular time slot here at Verbling, I am going to be talking about the TOEFL reading test. All right, the TOEFL reading test is notoriously difficult. Okay, it is a difficult test. Let's not mess around. Uh, it is one of the 4 elements of the TOEFL test. The TOEFL test is an exam which you would take, which is actually required by many universities and colleges in the United States in order to be admitted. It is an English speaking assessment test. First of all, the entire test, since it is geared towards college students or graduate students, it is largely on academic topics, as well as the more conversational elements of the test are about conversations that surround university life and lifestyle. So conversations you hear in listening or you react to in the speaking test have to do with dormitory life, the parking at the school, the class loads, problems with professors, etc. And the topics which you would see in reading, for example, are academic topics, things like they may deal with science and math, like geology or astronomy, botany, things like that. Or sometimes they have to do with the arts, such as maybe you'll read about Shakespeare or the dance rituals in Bali. Who knows? These exams are academic topics of this nature. Don't bother trying to study the topics. The topics are very wide-ranging. I mean, academia is very wide-ranging as a concept. So it's impossible to actually really study academic topics as a way of preparing for the reading test. No. In fact, I highly recommend that you study the strategy of taking the TOEFL exam. TOEFL wants what they want. And that goes for especially in in writing and speaking. They're looking for you to do specific things. We're going to concentrate, however, on reading. Before I get to that, more about the general TOEFL exam. This exam takes about 3 hours, 20 minutes, 3.5 hours. There are 4 elements, same thing in IELTS test, TOEIC. A lot of these have the same 4 basic elements, which are, of course, the 4 basic elements of communication: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The way the test is scored, there really are two scores that you get in TOEFL. The first is a raw score. Okay, so for example, in the writing test, there's only 2 questions, and you basically get a score 0 to 5. That's your raw score. So a perfect score would be 10. Speaking, each question is 0 to 4. Basically, you get a raw score, and then listening and reading, you have maybe 40 questions. And then, so if you get 38 of them correct, that's your raw score, 38. These scores are then converted through a mathematical formula known only to TOEFL. It has to do with prior test taker scores. Uh, it's basically non-published material. So how they convert that raw score, you can usually guesstimate. They have charts that you can use to guess what your final score would be, your adjusted score. Your final scores, the best possible score is 30 in each category. 30 times 4 is 120, would be a perfect score. I have never heard of anyone getting a perfect score in TOEFL. I've heard some very high ones, 116. However, I've actually never heard of anyone getting a perfect score in TOEFL. It's one of those tests. That's all there is to it. Okay, now we are going to concentrate on the reading test for this week. However, today, if anybody wants to join me, if you have questions about TOEFL in general, TOEFL as compared to IELTS or other tests, I'd be happy to answer any questions about TOEFL today that you may have. That's fine. Today is basically an overview and basic tips and strategies. All right, this reading test is going to consist of basically three passages. They're going to be pretty long. You're going to have roughly 3 or 4 passages, about 15 questions each. Again, totaling somewhere around 40 questions. You're going to have an hour. This is the biggest problem, the time. You're fighting the clock. In fact, the entire TOEFL exam is timed, every part of it, your speaking preparation and answer time. Every part of the test is timed. So the clock is your number one enemy throughout, especially in reading. Especially in reading because you don't have a lot of time, but many questions involve, different types of questions involve a different strategy. Some types of questions may actually involve looking at multiple choice A, B, C, D. You may actually have to find all 4 pieces of information. Not necessarily hard question, but time-consuming questions. Frankly, some types of questions are relative. They're subjective. Depends on the interpretation of the reader, which is why it becomes so difficult. Sometimes, as an example, just to illustrate sometimes what this test is like, a question may be like 2 times 5 equals A, 6, B, 9, C, 12, D, 22. All right, well, really, 2 times 5 equals 10. So none of the given answers is 10, but 9 is the closest answer. So I think you can see the problem. Sometimes it would seem that the answer is not exactly perfectly correct, but it is the most correct. And that's what you have to deal with. That's the other main challenge. You have the time and the subjectiveness of the test. Okay, I'd like to talk about, first start out with very, very basic information and strategy. There are questions on the test which ask you to talk about what is the purpose of the passage. For the most part, they're going to fall into these categories. And I'd like to do a screen share so you can read along. Okay. Okay, before I get into this, hello, Nader. Are you?
Hi, how are you?
Oh, we're speaking now.
Yes, I'm in
Okay.
reading mood.
Okay. Very good. Welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Uh, okay. All right. I'm today. This is the overview of the exam. So some really general kind of tips. All right. First, one thing you have to recognize: what is the passage trying to do? There may be questions relative to this. Is the passage trying to explain something, prevent information, and loaded with facts? All right, is a fact-based reading passage. Is the passage trying to resolve some kind of debate or question that needs an answer? Uh, all right, trying to find solutions for some sort of a problem. Is the passage trying to convince you of something? All right, arguing the validity of certain viewpoints. Uh, this will present you with opinions and possibly evidence in the form of examples like experiments or citing papers that other scientists have written, things of that nature. Uh, okay, this is important and basically something you do as you're doing the test. Just something to keep in the back of your mind. There's not a lot of questions about this. There may be 2 or 3 in the whole exam, but simply knowing this will actually help you because it also helps you kind of figure out what the structure is, how the author is attacking the problem, and where to find the information. All right, because basically, again, you're fighting the clock. So if you can find your answers immediately or quickly, this is going to help. Now, sometimes they actually tell you where to find the information. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Along with, um, okay, so how do you do that? How do you figure out what the purpose is? Nader, you have any suggestions?
How to? Yes. First of all, the structure of the passage will tell you
Mm-hmm.
if it's like an introduction, then some reasons, then a conclusion. Then maybe
Right.
it is for convincing. If it's only full of facts, like then this it's like factual.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
then what is the third type?
Uh,
Resolution.
resolution.
If they tell you a problem, then they offer some suggestions and so on. So it is a
Yeah.
resolution. So I
Right.
guess it's the structure of the passage.
It is, and even if it's like a problem, it's going to say what the problem is in the first paragraph, and then attack it, and then in the conclusion, right? It's going to draw the conclusion. So that being said, some very basic big points. Uh, Read the first 2 lines of the first paragraph. Okay, this is basically going to sh- not only that. What this information omits is also read the title. Sometimes the title itself, each reading passage has a title. Sometimes the title itself basically puts the topic out there. Sometimes the title is kind of, I don't know, a humorous title or a sarcastic title or something like that, so it's not direct. So sometimes the title won't help. Sometimes it will help a lot. Uh, yeah, you're
At least give it a shot.
at least give it a shot. Exactly. All right, the first two lines of the first paragraph are probably the first two lines which are the best. Now, read the first line of each body paragraph. Okay, what is the topic of each paragraph? And then you can think about why is the author doing that. The first and last line of the final paragraph. Okay, you can make notes, by the way, as you're doing this exam. So figuring out what the common idea is. This little bit of advice here also follows into basically how to do the test. Most of you, a few of you out there may be fast enough readers so that you can actually sit down and try to comprehensively read the entire passage. But in actuality, probably most of you are going to be obviously second language learners, so your reading speed may not be, you know, that great. These are long passages. So the idea being, instead of reading everything, you actually simply skim the material. You go through the material very quickly, but being careful about the things that we just noted. The first part of the first paragraph is really crucial. The first sentence of each body paragraph is usually very important. Sometimes you may have to read the second paragraph to get second sentence to get the idea, and then the first and last sentence of the last paragraph are generally, these are the most important bits of information and can kind of explain what's going on. And then the rest of the material you're gonna skim through, look for words that are repeated throughout the piece several times, to get the idea. Okay, they repeat the word X-rays 3 times in this paragraph. All right, I may make notes. Paragraph 3, X-rays. This is called mapping. You're mapping the passage. You're making a little map of where you can find things. Again, about half the questions will tell you exactly where to look, and about half the questions you're going to have to hunt. So you're going to have a reasonable map. When you're doing this, looking at the lines, the first line or two of each paragraph, here's another clue. Often they will include some direction words, some signal words or signal phrases, which can show you, are they continuing to add more points, as in an information, factual, presenting you with facts? Are they arguing a point by using language to move into an opposite direction? These are important things to see, okay? Because they're important because they often try to trick you, because in the reading passage it's saying, on the other hand, all right? Instead of adding an example, they're adding a contrasting point. So these are important to recognize as you're reading, to understand the flow, and also when you're actually doing the questions, because sometimes the questions, very often the questions, the possible answers are exactly the opposite of the information in the text. That's one of their trick questions. I'm going to get back to that. How do they try to trick you? Yes, they do. They try to fool you. So keep an eye out for these kind of transition words. These words are called different things. You hear them over and over again talked about in English classes as transitions, as signal words or signal phrases, as discourse markers, as direction words. Okay, whatever you want to call it, you need to become familiar with these kinds of words, because you should be using them when you're speaking. You definitely need to use them in writing Very crucial in TOEFL, and you should be able to recognize what they're doing in reading and listening. The speakers in listening will use these sort of words that change the direction. These are important to know. Uh, Look for them in the reading or listen for them in the listening. For example, one reason, due to, okay, know what these words do because they're definitely going to come up. Whoa. Hello, new person whose Cyrillic name I don't know. Hello. Hello.
Hello,
Welcome.
hello.
Hi. What's your name?
My name is Daniel.
Daniel?
Daniel.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Welcome to the class, Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Do you have plans on taking the TOEFL test?
What?
Do you have plans to take the TOEFL test?
I don't know what is it TOEFL. My English
Ah,
really little.
okay.
So this
It's
is simply no.
I guess not, right? Okay. Okay. Simply no. Okay. All right. It's an exam that people take in English to test their English in order to get into university, usually. Again, usually 3 to 5 passages, usually 3. Um, each passage has 12 to 14 questions. You're going to end up with about 40 questions. So, and basically, this test takes an hour, at least for the TOEFL IBT, which is the test now given. It's basically, also, I might as well share this with you just to see what it looks like. What the screen, it's a computerized test. Okay, Danielle, it's going to look something like this. You'll have this fills the screen. You have very basic controls. Here's what it looks like, the reading. All right. You have very simple back next controls. You can hide the time, although I don't know why you would want to. If you need the help button, then you shouldn't be taking the test because you should already know what's going on. They have a review button. This button is very, very important. You can actually click this button and see what questions you have answered and which questions you have left blank. Actually, this is very, very important as you proceed through the test, because one of the best strategies is to actually do the 2-pass system, in which you do the entire test twice. All right, because some questions are more difficult and or maybe both. Difficulty may be a factor as well as time consuming. Okay, so you may want to do the easy questions first. Some questions are very quick. You can do them in 10 seconds. And some questions you're going to sit there and struggle for 10 minutes. You simply can't do that. At 40 questions and 60 minutes, do the math. You've got like a minute and a half for each question. So you cannot spend 10 minutes on one question. Okay, some basic principles. Always remember this. The answer to every single question on the test is in the passage. All right, there's a type of question where one of the answers may be not given, meaning it's not in the passage. Okay, that's the only time when the answer is not in the passage. Everything else is in there. It just takes your interpretation. You just have to find the answer. There are also inference questions, where you have to infer or deduce or deduct what the answer is. Now, those types of questions, basically, the deduction, what you deduce, it would have to be true from what is given in the actual reading passage. Back to the two-pass system, I think this is a good idea. Maybe not. This is advice, so take it as advice. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but it's worked for a great many of my students in the past. It's very successful. Many people, most people, the first time they take the TOEFL test, they only get through maybe the first reading passage, and they run out of time. This is not uncommon. If you're getting ready for this test and you've just taken a practice exam, you are not you are not the only one who doesn't have enough time to take the test. This is extremely common. Okay. Okay, some question types are inherently faster and easier. Others are more difficult, take more time. Learning the different question types and learning which ones for you as an individual seem to be much easier and faster, and which questions you struggle with, you get wrong when you practice, or they take you a lot of time. This isn't an individual thing, which is going to take practice on your part, and this is something you should do as part of your practice as you prepare for this exam. You should know before you take the test which types of questions give you problems and which don't. I can share with you generally what most people think, or many people think, but I have found as I've helped students prepare that some people find different types of questions are easier or more difficult. Yeah, and not most of the questions are worth 1 point. There is one or two types of questions that sometimes are worth more points. They have more value. They're weighted more heavily. So this is another factor you have to consider when you're thinking about doing the two-pass system. Okay. Another basic principle which I highly recommend, I don't know how you could do this test without doing this, process of elimination. Get rid of the bad answers. Again, because the test is so subjective, you have to figure out which answer is the best answer. Maybe it's not perfectly what you would consider to be absolutely correct, but it is the best answer. Because of the nature of the test, because this is true, really the only possible way to get around it is to eliminate one by one the answers which are the worst. There are many trap answers. They look correct, but they're not correct. They are very tricky. Okay. Normally, there's multiple choice questions, A, B, C, D. One of them is going to be really just stupid, and you can eliminate it immediately. This is very normal. The other two you're going to have to probably think about and consider and analyze if in fact they could be one of the types of trap answers to pick. This is very normal throughout the test. Another thing, you can, as you take the exam, you can make notes, and you can kind of, as you're making notes, you can think about using some kind of symbols to save yourself time, because there's a number of questions that give multiple possible answers. maybe a check means a good answer, a weak answer, I have no idea, the question mark, double checks means the best answer, maybe X a bad answer. It's up to you, but it's a good idea to have some kind of strategy for using process of elimination to sort of work your way through the tests, because that's what you're going to do. So, for example, oh, this is totally not right. I don't think this is right. This seems the best. I have no idea what this means. So there you go. Little symbols to help you stay organized, so you're not wasting time. Anything to be efficient. You must be extremely efficient and not waste time. All right, in this case, you'd have to go with the check possibility, because check's a good answer, and question mark is I have no idea. So there you go. It's a good idea to kind of keep that in mind. Now, this is extremely important. How they try to trick you. They use these types of trap answers. Okay, everything I've said today, this is probably the most important. Recognizing the type of answers that you have to choose from. Okay, they're tempting because they seem right. They're trying to trick you. Usually, they're going to fall into one of these categories. Not mentioned. As I said before, every correct answer is in the passage. So if one of your possible answer choices has information not in the passage, it can't be right. Often, the answer, this is important, it may make common sense, or you may know it to be a fact. Maybe it's true in the real world. However, it isn't in the reading passage. You sort of have to take the position as you do the exam that you, even if you know about the information you're reading, you have to imagine you're a space alien, you know nothing about it, you have no idea, you've never heard of this material before, and all you know is what you see in the reading passage. Okay, this is one kind of trap. Maybe it's true, but it's not in the reading. Here is another one that they do all the time. Extreme answers. All right. Because it's academic material. Academic material draws upon theory, hypotheticals, ideas, science. About half of these articles are going to be science and math, and half will be arts. In either case, there are no absolutes, or at least academic users, they're not going to put theories in extremes. It's a theory. A theory does not mean this is the answer. It means this is the best idea about the answer we know. So you can't use extreme words or absolutes when you're talking about theories. It makes no sense. Words like all, always, impossible, must, never, none. It is extremely rare that correct answers will have these words in them. Extremely rare. So when in doubt, if it's extreme, throw it out. If the possible answer has extreme language in it, absolute language, it's probably wrong. Okay, here's another type of trick. Right answer, wrong question. Okay, the information is in the passage. It's there. However, it's there, it's true, it's in the passage, but it doesn't actually answer the question. One technique that I use is to read the question, read it again, and simplify it in my mind. Reword the question in a simpler way in my brain. Then try to find the answer. When maybe I could just throw away the first answer. I know that's not true. Maybe the second answer is very extreme. I know that's not true. The third answer, it seems right. I am always going to, if an answer seems right, I'm going to look at it, look at the question again, a third time. Does this really answer the question? A quick check that you can do, and you should do as just basic practice when taking this test. Double check that it answers the question. Okay, verbatim. Okay, many wrong answers repeat parts of the passage word for word. Unfortunately, this is very similar to right answer, wrong question. They use the words in the wrong context or incorrectly. These can be very tempting, especially since you're trying to fight the clock, and because you have an answer that has 6 or 7 sentences which are exactly the same as the passage, 6 or 7 words. Sorry, it wouldn't ever be 6 or 7 sentences. You think it must be right, but not always. This is very similar to right answer, wrong question. Last possibility for trick or trap questions beyond the information. Choices in this category are based on the information in the passage, but they go far beyond the information. All right, for example, if the passage states some species of chimpanzees make crude tools out of branches, the answer choice may say many animals can make tools. Okay, this answer goes beyond the information. Some species of chimpanzees is very specific, where many animals extremely general. So, okay, when the possible answer choices completely generalize specific information, this is also a very common trap. Depending on you and your understanding of all these things, 1 or 2 of these might be very difficult for you to consider. For me, it's this last one. I have a hard time with this. I have noticed that other students studying for TOEFL have more difficulties with one of these other types of fake answer or trap answer. Everyone seems to be a little different here, but definitely you should learn to recognize these, because they over and over again in the reading test. Seriously, over and over again you run into the same kinds of trick questions. Quick trick answers. We're talking about the answers, the multiple choice A, B, C, D. This is very common. Do you guys have any questions, comments, violent reactions? Nah.
No, I don't have questions.
Okay. Okay. Very basically, all right, your basic strategy. Look for the purpose, the structure, and the main idea. There are questions about that. All right, so you want to be able to do your skim and then be able to say in your brain, okay, this article is about it's about chimpanzees, and it's about measuring their intelligence. There's always a topic and then a controlling idea. All right, what are they? Chimpanzees is broad. What am I talking about? Their mating habits, their geographical location, their grooming habits. There's a lot to talk about. So Topic, controlling idea. Okay, how to measure their intelligence. You should know that by the time you're done skimming. Look at the question based on the question type, and we're going to start looking at that now. We're going to continue tomorrow. This is really important. Different types of question types take a slightly different strategy, and also they use different types of trap questions. You definitely need to know how they use trap questions. You will definitely recognize them. I mean, once you see one or two of them, oh yeah, that's okay. I know what that is. That it's totally not in the test. They'll have possible answers that are not in the passage. They'll have possible answers that will have, I might add, half, maybe there's 2 points in the sentence of the possible answer. And half of it is in the passage, but half of it is not. It's another way they'll try to trick you. Again, the answer is always in the passage, and using the process of elimination, hopefully you can end up with one answer left, and that's going to be it. Okay. I definitely want to start talking about question types. There are a finite number, thank goodness, of question types. And tomorrow's class, we're going to be actually attacking this. If we may even start today. But I want to briefly look at these. Question types include vocabulary questions. These are, and by the way, these there's a list of all 11 here. These would be listed in the sequence from easiest to hardest, as most people would consider. Now, you're an individual. Some people find certain types of questions, others find easy. They may find them difficult, vice versa. You, to personalize your own strategy, you have to figure out what questions are difficult or easy for you. Okay, vocabulary questions are generally considered to be easier. Basically, they give you a word in the passage and they give you 4 choices. Which word is a synonym? Reference questions, I personally think these are even easier. Pronouns, often a pronoun. What does a pronoun refer to? We use pronouns, obviously, in English. They refer to something else. It, he, she. Okay, he refers to Dr. Alfonso Benedino, whatever. These are generally pretty easy to figure out. And they're very easy to attack because a reference question is always referring to something that came previously or came before, so you know right where to find the information. So you don't have to hunt for the information. A vocabulary question, the word is actually highlighted. So again, there's no searching, which wastes time. So that's why it's 1 or 2. There's a lot of vocabulary questions. There's, out of the 40 questions, you probably have 6 to 8 vocabulary questions. There's a lot of them. Reference questions, maybe 3, for example. Lead word questions. Okay. They refer to a word highlighted. They may ask, why does the author use this word or phrase? Okay, what is the author's intention? This goes back to what we started with, knowing what the author's trying to do. Again, there's usually only 1 or 2 of these questions on the test. Detail really is the easiest kind of question. It's asking for actually word-for-word things from the passage. You just got to find it. Here it doesn't tell you where to find it, but once you found it, you know you found it because it's really word for word, verbatim. So these types of questions are fast because there's no second guessing. Once you know you've got it, you've got it. This is where your mapping or skimming the reading comes in handy. You can do these very fast. Paraphrase. Ask you to find the answer choice that means the same as the bolded sentence in the passage. All right, that's pretty straightforward. Again, probably maybe a couple of these in the whole test. They're pretty fast. Definition. Okay, they'll give you a word, and then you have to hunt in the passage for the definition of that word. Now, obviously, any of the questions where you have to hunt or scan, you're going to find a keyword, and you're going to scan or search or hunt for that keyword to try to find where the definition for a certain word is. So it's not difficult, and once you find the answer, you're pretty sure you've got the answer. It's not that hard, but it could take time. Again, another area, this is the type of question that it would be, it really helps to do a good mapping or a good initial skimming of the passage so you know where to find the answers. Okay, this one may be 3 on average, 2, 3, 4 of this type of question. Before and after, these are rare, very rare, 0 to 1 at most. Asking what kind of paragraph would likely precede or follow, would start or end the passage. These are extremely rare. I wouldn't even study that, to be honest. They're really rare. I don't even know if they do those anymore. Sentence insertion. There's always at least one of these on the test, probably 2. Okay, you see 4 black squares, and they give you a sentence as part of the question. Your job is to figure out which, substituting the sentence for a black square, where would it fit best into the passage. It's actually very much related to reference because often the sentence they give you is going to have 2 parts, 2 clauses, and the first clause is going to refer, have some kind of reference information or actual pronouns or something that refers to something previously, and the second part of the sentence will introduce something that's coming up. So you just have to figure out where to fit it. It's time consuming because you have to basically read 3 sentences 4 times to figure out where it goes, where it fits in the best. Some of them are actually quite easy. Some of them are quite a bit more difficult, so it's hard to say on the difficulty level. Definitely time consuming, however. That's a lot of work. You're going to have to read yourself 4 sets of 3 sentences and see which one makes the most sense. Definitely time consuming. Okay. So yeah, you're asking about saving time there in the chat box. I see you guys. The idea is there's a number of tips. Doing 2 passes, which is what we're kind of looking at the question types right now. We're talking about we're actually talking about what questions to do on the first pass. In other words, you go through the entire test 2 times. There's actually a review button in the TOEFL test that can show you the questions you didn't answer the first time. And by the way, as you're doing the actual questions, you can see the reading on your screen at the same time that you're answering the questions. So you don't have to like scroll up or scroll down or go back pages or anything like that. You can see the reading as you're working. So that'll save you time. You do the whole test, then click the review button, and then you can just do all of the questions that you didn't hit the first time. Okay, question number 9, except not least. Okay, these can be difficult. Suggested for the second pass. Again, you may be different as an individual. You may be able to do these quickly. But since you are looking for the answer that is not in the passage, okay, you're looking for what's not there. So you have to find 3 things that are there. Very time consuming. So I would save this for the second pass. Even if it can be easy, it's just going to take time to find it. And they don't tell you where to look, so you're going to have to scan for keywords and search. But not only for one answer, you have to search for every answer and to find the one that is not there. Just because the second one you look at, A, B, C, D, you look at B and you can't find it, that doesn't mean you can stop. You have to look for C. Maybe you can't find C either, which means you have to start over again. Just because you don't find one doesn't mean, okay, that's the one that's not there. You have to continue. You have to look for C. You have to look for D. Okay, finally, I found A, I found C, I found D. B's not there. Now I can confidently choose B. So, clearly, very time-consuming. Inference question. Everybody thinks these are hard because they're completely subjective. Okay. Many people would save these for second pass. Okay, except not least, there's going to be a couple of these at least. The inference question, unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, but there's going to be 4 to 6 of these. There's usually quite a few. Okay, the tough part here is correct responses to these questions must be true based on the information. So it's almost a misnomer. It's calling it an inference. You don't have to infer. It should be, okay, 1 plus 2 equals, well, 3. It has to be 3. Okay, and the last one, summary questions worth 2 points. Actually, I have seen them worth 3 points or even 4 points. Okay, so these can be worth more. Debatable. Should you do them on first pass or second pass? Debatable. Depends how good at them you are. There is a very specific technique that I'm going to share with you in the next few days about doing these types of questions. They're worth more if you get good at them, and it takes practice. If you're having reasonable success and not taking too much time, you may want to do this on the first pass. If they take you forever, you may want to wait. Okay. All right. And actually, there is an interesting point here. Because they require some knowledge of the passage, definitely. Do them on the second pass after you've become more familiar with the material. Well, that's true. Fortunately, also, these question types can be mixed up. They don't always come in this order, but generally they do come in this order, at least insofar as, definitely insofar as the summary question is always the last question in a group of questions about one passage, which is good because you have to have a lot of general information about the whole passage. Okay, we've only got a few minutes left. Any questions? Anyone?
No.
Aileen? No.
Because
Okay,
I can't understand all of all of.
it's okay. You can watch the recording. Okay. Uh, all right. So tomorrow we're going to look at question types and strategies to look at for specific question types, um, which usually actually runs into the next day, unfortunately. Uh, do you need to write anything, or is it? Well, you can make notes. Actually, in all parts of the exam, you can make notes. So, uh, so yeah, it's a good idea to do so that you can kind of figure out what you're doing. Once you answer, though, well, you can review. You can even decide to go back and redo an answer. But once you've answered, you should definitely just stick with your answer and plow forward. In all likelihood, you will run out of time. Okay, most people do. Almost everyone does. So if you run out of time, you do not lose points for an incorrect answer. It just adds up all your correct answers. So, in other words, just guess. If they're multiple choice, there's no excuse for not giving an answer for each question. Yeah, and they're all multiple choice, so you might as well, so you might as well just guess. Sometimes their choices A, B, C, D, E. How many is that? Well, maybe there's 6 choices, and you have to pick 3 out of A, B, C, D, E. You have to pick 3, like in the summary question, the last one. Okay, and also Aileen out there, you're welcome and thank you. As we tomorrow, we're going to look at question types and strategies, and then I'm going to be here at this same time Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for practice, 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 practice. The name of the game, the biggest thing is a lot of practice is what's going to make you better. Once you know or have an idea of the basic tips and strategies, it's just all about practice. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I have to go because I have another verbaling class coming right up. But thank you for your attention. Thank you, Danielle,
Thank you.
Eileen
Thank you
outside.
very much for listening. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.